So that Nintendo Direct was really good, right? Like, I think it had something for everybody. Honestly, I think if Nintendo still had enough releases like the ones that they showed off today lined up and still had a couple Nintendo Directs like this one lined up for the next like year or so, they could get away with not releasing another Switch. There's a world in which we have the Nintendo Switch that we have now for like 2 more years if they have this much stuff in the pipeline that still runs on that hardware. Do I think that's a good idea? No. I don't think that's a good idea. As far as we know, it seems like shareholders are even getting a little bit antsy about the fact that the Switch is running on old hardware, and Nintendo continues to prove the shareholders wrong. But that's not a thing you should get in the habit of doing, because the house is always going to win. So they should probably release a new Switch within the next year or so, right? Anyway, if you're new here, my name is Brendan Bigley. This is Wavelengths. It's a show about video game news, and today there was a Nintendo Direct that was pretty stunning, I think. Going into this Direct, I think one of the things that most people had at top of mind when it came to Nintendo specifically was like, really the only thing we know about that's coming is Pikmin 4. Like, in terms of Nintendo's lineup for the rest of 2023, Pikmin 4 is like the showstopper. We knew about the DLC for Pokemon, but outside of that, it was like, are they going to be able to fill that gap with stuff? We haven't heard about any of it. Seems unlikely. Turns out it was unlikely, but it is true. They have filled that gap a lot. And I'm going to go through the stuff that I am excited about, specifically ordered by when it's coming out. Because I think by ordering it in chronological order, you get a much better sense of how much Nintendo can play things close to the vest. There are so many things that are coming out so soon, or like within the next month or 2 months, that we had not even an inkling about, which is really exciting. First 2 things I'll talk about real quick are Pikmin 4, which, you know, again, we knew was coming. It's coming out July 21st. Looks great. Saw a little bit more gameplay. I think specifically the big shift, if you haven't played a Pikmin game before, one of the big things is, you know, you go out into the world, but at night, things get really scary, so you have to go back into your, like, little mothership. I think it's called the Onion, and you have to hide out during the night, and then the next day you go out and explore again. In this game, you can explore at night, which I think adds a little bit of like kind of a fun difficulty curve to Pikmin that maybe that game needed, especially in its 4th iteration. The game looks beautiful. I'm really excited about it. There's a demo coming out on June 28th, but the other big thing is that there are ports of Pikmin 1 and 2 coming to Switch today. They're already out, actually. They're $30 each or $50 together, which might be steep depending on how you feel about that. I'm perfectly happy to pay $50 for both of them. I think that's exciting. But what that means is that you could play Pikmin 1, 2, and 3 on the Switch in the next 30 days to get ready for Pikmin 4. On August 17th, Vampire Survivors is coming to Switch, which is exciting, but I feel like that's a game that should have been on Switch for a long time already. You know, I remember playing it on Steam Deck and thinking to myself, like, man, I wish this was on Switch. And it took so long that there are already Vampire Survivors ports out on mobile, official ones, not just like the copious ripoffs that exist, but like official ones. So I have had my fill of Vampire Survivors. I was like, how exciting is this to me? And then they announced that there's going to be 4-player co-op, and that is really cool. Because, like, look, 4-player co-op, I'm sure, is going to be coming to PC and the PlayStation and Xbox versions of this game, but the Switch is just so easy to play co-op with, like having Joy-Cons and multiple controllers. Like, I already have so many controllers for Smash and Mario Kart, and like whenever people come over and we play stuff, that this is just like a natural fit. The big question for me about 4-player co-op in Vampire Survivors, though, is like, that's my podcast game, man. That's my audiobook game. Am I going to want to play my podcast game with a bunch of people? I don't know, but I can't wait to find out. Detective Pikachu is finally getting a sequel. This is a thing that I feel like has been rumored to be in development maybe since the first one was released. Like, it's been such a long time. I feel like I always hear like, yeah, there's going to be another Detective Pikachu, but it never materializes. And here it is. And it's weird, like, it's been so long that this announcement was a little bit underwhelming to me. Like, I'm still excited to check it out. I mean, that first one is like beloved for a reason. But this is coming out October 6th. I'm kind of like reserving judgment a little bit, but it does look really fun. I mean, it looks cute and weird and all the ways that you want it to, you know? Okay, so here's the big one, because this was rumored, I think like a couple days ago. There was a rumor that was floating around that said something to the effect of like, there's going to be a new 2D side-scrolling Mario game. It's not a new Super Mario Brothers game. Like, stylized like with new Super Mario Brothers, like the DS ones or whatever. This is a completely different thing. Enter this game, Super Mario Wonder. It's coming out October 20th, which is like, again, amazing that it's coming out this year, and it looks amazing. It's like a halfway point between, I would say, like classic Mario, like 3D Mario design and claymation. The art style is like almost hard to put your finger on, and I think that's one of the things that makes the subtitle Wonder work so well. It's like you don't even really know how to describe what it looks like. It just looks cool. The showstopper, of course, is Elephant Mario. I mean, you can't not talk about Elephant Mario when you're talking about this. That was like, I love that they had Elephant Mario show up at the end as if it was like a post-credit scene in a Marvel movie. But it looks like it has all the hits. It looks like, it has 4-player co-op. It has, a bunch of the like classic power-ups and stuff. But just like a really, really inventive and stylized version of Mario, which, considering the new Super Mario Brothers line has gone from literally the Nintendo DS until now, it's about time there was a pretty big refresh. My worst fear is that it was going to look like the Illumination Entertainment movie that just came out. I thought this was going to be a movie tie-in, because there have been some rumblings that there was a new Mario game in the works, and I was really concerned that it was going to be a tie-in with the movie, and I'm really glad it's not. Like, the movie's fine, but, like, I don't want a game in that art style. This is amazing. And this, to me, even just with the subtitle, again, like Wonder, I think elicits so many ideas and conjures up so many like Nintendo-ass concepts in my head that I'm just excited to see them like really run wild and get really experimental again, because I think it's kind of been a while, at least for the side-scroller Mario stuff. As much as I love it, as much as I love and like stand by, and I find myself constantly defending New Super Mario Brothers as a line of games, it's about time they did something like this. 4 days after Super Mario Wonder, we get the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection Volume 1, which is the thing that got announced at the PlayStation event, if I'm not mistaken, when they announced the Metal Gear Solid 3 remake. That said, we didn't have a date, so again, October 24th, that's exciting. We know now that it includes Metal Gear Solids 1, 2, and 3, also Metal Gear 1 and 2, and I think they said NES or Super Nintendo versions of these games as well. There's a lot of games getting packaged in here, which is exciting. I had no idea and like really no like wish, hope, or dream that it was coming to Switch. I just assumed this was a thing that I was going to play on like Game Pass cloud streaming onto like one of my many handheld devices. But having it on Switch is exciting. I have not played these games really, and I'm wondering if maybe them being on Switch is going to be me finally ripping the Band-Aid off and checking them out. This one I think is just for like a really small group of people, but Star Ocean Second Story R is getting a full 2D, 3D remake. It's coming out on November 2nd, which is really cool. Star Ocean is a great RPG franchise. I played First Departure R, I think last summer, and had a really good time with it, but as I was playing through it and looking up like conversation about it online, everyone just seemed to say, yeah, the first one's really good, but man, it's all about that second one. So I've been really waiting for this to come out, and I think a lot of people have as well. It's one of those ones where like people weren't sure if it was even going to happen and why it was taking so long, and now we know why. It's because it's like a full remake. I just think this game looks really beautiful. I am not yet tiring of the 2D, 3D aesthetic. I wonder how long until that happens. Right now, it does seem like a really elegant way of taking games that were made in the Super Nintendo and NES era and bringing them back to life. But I wonder how long everyone will just be like cool with these games having the same art style. Either way, Star Ocean Second Story is a game that I know a lot of people really love. As far as I know, it's also like an endless game. Like you could play it for like hundreds of hours. So I'm excited to get my hands on it. November 2nd. November 3rd, the next day, we get WarioWare Move It, which is a new game in the WarioWare franchise, which is kind of wild because I feel like when the Switch was announced, it was like, yeah, there's going to be a WarioWare for this, and it's going to be really good. And then it took a really long time for Get It Together to drop, which was the multiplayer and co-op and also competitive-focused WarioWare game, which I think is like a flawed but interesting game. I had a really good time with it. I think I got more into the competitive side than most people did. You know, the like online leaderboards and stuff like that were really enticing to me, but it didn't feel like WarioWare at the end of the day. There was too much to think about, needing to control characters, almost choose them from like a fighter game. Like select menu was really weird. When I think of WarioWare, I think one of the things about it is that you're supposed to have that like split second, oh my god, what do I do moment. The thing with Get It Together was like, because of all of the added mechanics on top of just playing the mini games, you were asking yourself, oh god, what do I do at the wrong times. WarioWare Move It just seems like a return to form, man. I mean, this game looks amazing. There's really not a lot to say about it outside of you have to hold one Joy-Con in each hand, and they're gonna have you doing a bunch of wild shit. There's co-op in this game as well. If you have 4 Joy-Cons, I don't know. It's gonna be great. November 3rd. I can't wait to play it. Super Mario RPG is getting a remake. I don't even know how this is possible, really, because this is one of those situations where like Nintendo and Square Enix worked on this game together and then had like very famously had like a breakup. Like the two companies were like, we're not working together anymore. Square Enix started making all of their Final Fantasy games and stuff for the PlayStation, and then Nintendo was kind of left high and dry, wondering like, what do we do about this, pretty successful RPG franchise that we just launched with one game, which then birthed Paper Mario, which is, a great franchise in its own right. But I feel like Super Mario RPG has just kind of been floating over in the corner, like it's always even a question if it's going to get added to like Virtual Console. When I first saw the art show up in the Direct, my first thought was like, oh, yeah, cool. They're adding it to Nintendo Switch Online. That's actually really surprising because of, this like famous feud between Nintendo and Square and whatever. But like, never did I imagine that they were just remaking the game entirely. That's like a huge deal. I think this game getting remade is going to be the thing that will finally get me to play it. I have had a great time over the past like 2-ish years playing through the Paper Mario games and the Mario and Luigi games. And Super Mario RPG has been one that I'm always like, one day I'll go back and I'll check this out. I need to be in the right frame of mind. And maybe the right frame of mind is just like, oh yeah, they remade the game and made it a little bit easier to like maneuver and get into than, going and playing it on the Super Nintendo. So that's really exciting. I'm stoked to check that out. It's November 17th. Now, speaking of games I have played and will play again, the Batman Arkham Trilogy, launching this fall, nebulous date, so it could be anywhere in between what I just talked about. But all 3 Arkham games coming to Switch. I'm actually really surprised by that. 1 and 2, Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, seemed like a natural fit on the Switch. Arkham Knight is a game that I still think is one of the best looking games ever made. Like, to this day, I could turn that game on and be like, this looks like a modern like PS5 game. Like, I think it's really that impressive looking. That said, how is that going to run on Switch? That's my big question. I have no idea how that game is going to run on the Switch, and I will probably hold off on buying it until I see a little bit of like a, hey, here's how the performance is. Also, I own these games on like every device I own. Anything that can play the Batman Arkham Trilogy, I already have the Batman Arkham Trilogy on. Do I need it on Switch again? Probably not. But I'm excited that it's happening, especially for people who haven't played them before. Having them all in one place, in handheld mode on the Switch, really exciting. It's going to be great. Launching in December 1st, is Dragon Quest Monsters, The Dark Prince. If you know me, you know I'm a huge Dragon Quest fan. I love the Dragon Quest Monsters franchise. Honestly, every spin-off of Dragon Quest is just about as good as Dragon Quest, sometimes if not better. Sometimes the spin-offs are even better than the source material. Dragon Quest Monsters is a franchise that a lot of people wanted to come back for a long time. If I'm remembering correctly, the last ones that released, at least in the United States, were on the DS. So it's been a really long time. If you don't know about Dragon Quest Monsters, they're Pokemon. They're Pokemon games, but they're set in the Dragon Quest universe, and that's great. This is a trailer where I didn't need any information. They could have just put the logo on screen and been like, you're going to buy this, right? Yeah, I am. And then 3 things without dates that I want to shout out real quick. Number 1 is Mythforce, which is a multiplayer first-person roguelike. It's based on 80s cartoons in terms of its aesthetic. Looks great. Has online co-op. It launches this year, but we don't know when. But it also has a demo out right now via Steam Next Fest. So if you have a Steam Deck or a PC, you can go check this game out, which I will probably do later. And then the last 2 things I'll shout out real quick. Coming in 2024, there's a game where you play as Peach. That's exciting. We don't really know a lot about it outside of that. But that's cool. Last game I can think of where you played as Peach was Super Princess Peach on the DS, which is a game that I just played pretty recently for Into the Aether and had an okay time with. I didn't love it as much as I wanted to, but I'm excited to play as Peach again in a game. I think there should be an entire Peach franchise. It's weird that there isn't one yet. I was going to say now's the time, but I think like 15 years ago was the time. So now is the second best time, I guess. And the other game, weird port that's coming, is Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon, which is the second Luigi's Mansion, the one that came out on the 3DS. A game I love, personally. I actually think it's a really great entry in the Luigi's Mansion franchise. It's just weird that this is coming out and not a port of the first one. Like, it seems like this should have been kind of similar to the Pikmin 1 and 2 ports situation, where it's like, yeah, hey, you can play Luigi's Mansion 1 and 2, and they're both out now on the Switch. Instead, they just announced Dark Moon is coming, specifically coming next year. And that's the Nintendo Direct. At least those are all the things that I was excited about. What about you? Was there anything not on my list that was on your list? Let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode of Wavelengths. I will catch you later. Bye, everybody.